Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. Let's take one number, 36.8 million. That's how many people lived in poverty in the United States in 2023, according to the latest census numbers. Now, think about how big of a number that is. And even before we talk about housing affordability or addiction or mental health, you can already see why homelessness is such a big, intractable problem. For his book, The Lost and the Found, A True Story of Homelessness, Found Family, and Second Chances, reporter Kevin Fagan zooms in on the lives of two people to talk about that big, impossible problem. Now, Fagan's been covering this issue for a long time, and in this interview with Here and Now's Deepa Fernandes, you can hear how frustrating it is that we, as a country, have yet to figure it out. That's coming up.
This message comes from Schwab. At Schwab, how you invest is your choice, not theirs. That's why when it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices. You can invest and trade on your own. Plus, get advice and more comprehensive wealth solutions to help meet your unique needs. With award-winning service, low costs, and transparent advice, you can manage your wealth your way at Schwab. Visit schwab.com to learn more.
Homelessness is a deeply entrenched problem in the United States, and perhaps no journalist knows that better than Kevin Fagan. As a reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, he embedded with the city's unhoused population, often sleeping next to them on a piece of cardboard and becoming deeply involved in their lives. Now, Kevin Fagan has retired and written a book about two of the unhoused people he profiled. It's called The Lost and the Found. Kevin Fagan joins us now. And Kevin, before we start, I want to be transparent with our audience. You and I work together at the Chronicle. I'm so happy to welcome you to the program. Thank you for joining us, Kevin.
Thanks, Deepa. And it was wonderful working with you.
Let's get to your book, Kevin. You've covered homelessness for decades, and you came to it from a very personal angle, and you start your book by telling us all about that. You know what homelessness is like. Can you tell us?
I was poor for a lot of my childhood, and then I got tossed out of the house when I was 16, went and lived in an unfinished garage where I built furniture out of scrap wood, and then wound up at San Jose State, which was great. I'd save up money and be in the dorms, but in vacations and semester breaks, I didn't have a home to go to, so I'd sleep in my car. And then after I graduated college, I was a street singer in Europe and Australia and New Zealand, sleeping in alleys and doorways.
As a reporter, after you made it through all of that, Kevin, one of the things you were tasked with covering in the early 1980s was homelessness, when the population of unhoused people exploded. Why did that happen back then?
Left over from the 70s, there was a pull down of mental institutions, for one, and that was really bad for the mentally ill community. The left had figured, hey, we have these great new psychotropic drugs. We can put people in board and care homes. And the right thought, great, we can save money. So off a whole lot of people went into board and care homes while the funding did not follow. And then in the early 80s, the Reagan administration decimated social service programs. And none of this, given my background, none of it was a mystery to me. So, they say, write what you know. So I leaned in on writing about that subject.
Your book focuses on two people you met over the course of your reporting, and you stayed with them over years, decades even. Their names are Rita and Tyson. Let's start with Rita. It sounds as though she had kind of the all-American life and upbringing. She was athletic, had lots of friends, she's beautiful. How does someone like Rita become homeless?
She graduated high school and didn't really know what to do with herself. Married a guy who was a great fisherman, and they lived in Florida along the coastline, wound up in Key West, living on boats. But she and her husband liked heroin. It got worse when they got divorced, and they had 4 kids by then. The responsibilities and the drugs and the choices of hanging out with the wrong people, picking the wrong boyfriends after her marriage, just cascaded into this kind of rattling down the ladder of life. Most chronically homeless people don't just wind up there one day to the next. It's use up your family, your friends, your government aid, everything, and then boom, you're on the bottom. And she wound up with a boyfriend who brought her out here to San Francisco and abandoned her. And pretty soon she was chronically homeless in the streets.
Yeah. The other person you profile is Tyson. He grew up right here in California. It's a wealthy suburb called Danville. It sounds as though he was smart, he made friends easily, he had every opportunity to succeed. And in fact, his brother, Barron, did well in school, established a business, got married, had a child. Kevin, what made one brother succeed and the other end up on the streets?
Well, I think he had an underlying bipolar condition that was undiagnosed, and the family was loving and supportive. But as Tyson came out of high school and slid into college, he couldn't stick with anything. His focus was not good, and he'd get frustrated. He wanted to succeed right away without paying dues, is how his father described it. And those frustrations led him to leaning into partying and drugs, and he started to like cocaine a lot. Cocaine led eventually to heroin and fentanyl and meth. And again, like Rita, he rattled down that ladder, using up family, resources, friends, and then wound up in San Francisco, chronically homeless.
I wonder, in the years that both Rita and Tyson were living on the streets, they formed strong ties with other unhoused people that, even though they came from vibrant, strong families, it was almost like the people on the streets became their family.
They did. Found family, chosen family. It's a survival mode. For Rita, especially as a woman in the streets, women get raped, get taken advantage of. It's more hazardous for women than for men in general in the streets. So it's awful for both. You do not want to be chronically homeless.
Yeah. I guess the confounding thing for those on the outside, Kevin, is that both Rita and Tyson had relatives and friends who cared so much about them, tried to get them off the street at points, but it's so complex. They weren't, it wasn't just an easy, come home, we'll take care of you. Why?
When you've been on the streets for a long time, like both of these folks had been, you get dug into your survival mode. And of course, along the way, they were in crisis and there was level of chaos to their lives. Rita stumbling her way to this little colony she wound up with in downtown called Homeless Island, with Tyson stumbling his way into a loose group of friends who watched out for each other, where he was a bit of a leader. And while you're doing that, your family is reaching out and saying, hey, you're going the wrong way, let us help. And drugs, the day-to-day hassle of staying alive just makes you so that you don't really want to listen. But what worked for them eventually was that they got tired of that.
I don't want to give away what happens to Rita or Tyson, because literally your book is such a page-turner. And Kevin, I was with you on that ride. There are really joyful moments and there are really heartbreaking turns and twists. But I guess both their stories left me wondering, what is the solution to this deep problem? I know you're not an elected official nor a policymaker, but you have the ear of people like Gavin Newsom, the California governor. I wonder what you see, Kevin. What do you tell these people in power about what needs to change?
My take, after all these years of covering it, from policy standpoints and from the street, is it's almost unsolvable unless we have a federal change of major import. The pull downs in the 80s that the Reagan administration and the rightward trend of our country enacted were never made up for. And what we have is a bunch of Band-Aids and localities and states trying to fill in. And for us, the best fill-in as a state and a city and a county is supportive housing, which is housing that pulls people in off the streets and then surrounds them with counseling to help them get over the drug or mental or job, whatever problems that put them in the street. And street counseling, where you actively go out and enlist people to come inside, which is a tough argument. Counterintuitive, a lot of people would think. You think you'd go up to someone on the street and say, hey, we have a free place for you to live, and we have counseling that'll help you rehab and stabilize your life. But people resist it because they're locked into their survival mode and they're fearful of the system. It's frustrating. 30% of the country, by most calculations that I trust, is in some level of poverty, either right at poverty level or below. And that's why every one person that you take off the streets in San Francisco, 4 more take their place. What we need is affordable housing, national health care, a way for people to make a living and not have to have 3 jobs and still not afford rent. There's just such despair involved in being on the very bottom. And, expecting these localities to absolutely solve that, it's really expecting a lot.
Kevin Fagan's book is The Lost and the Found, a true story of homelessness, found family, and second chances. Kevin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Deepa.
Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Online. Is your child asking questions on their homework you don't feel equipped to answer? IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. One subscription gets you everything. One site for all the kids in your home, pre-K to 12th grade. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And NPR listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/NPR. This message comes from Warby Parker. What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost, like free adjustments for life. Find your pair at warbyparker.com or visit one of their hundreds of stores around the country.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Rosetta Stone, an expert in language learning for 30 years. Right now, NPR listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership to 25 different languages for 50% off. Learn more at rosettastone.com/NPR.